Hey, welcome to the Reddit time. I hope you are having a good day, and let's hop into this thread. What's the most fucked up thing the US government has done? I mean, there was a time the National Guard shot and killed coal miners and their families who were being horribly exploited by coal companies, so they were striking. See also the Ludlow massacre, and the time they decided to routinely sterilize Native American women, and the Guatemala syphilis experiments, and the Tuskegee syphilis experiments. What the fuck is it with syphilis? Cut it out, you guys! Don't forget the National Guard killing college students at Kent State protest in Vietnam. We love talking about school shootings, just not that one. The silencing, embarrassing and killing of Gary Webb. Gary Webb was an investigative journalist who proved that the CIA was selling massive amounts of drugs, particularly cocaine, to typically black, poor neighborhoods all over the US. This was in order to fund an overthrow of the Nicaraguan government by US-friendly terrorists during the 90s. He was forced to resign, disgraced, blacklisted, divorced, and found dead with 2 bullets through his head in 2004. It was ruled a suicide despite the fact he owned no guns and it being 2 bullets through the head. Okay, so they managed to hide the drug ring for ages, but can't kill a person correctly? Dumbasses LMAO. It's just obvious enough to serve as a warning to any others who might want to expose such things. Exactly. People bring it up all the time, just like everyone talks about how Epstein didn't kill himself. We know these things to be true, but we only know that there is some shadowy force that's guilty, but what the fuck can anybody do about it? Remember Michael Hoskins? How he claimed the government was trying to kill him for his investigative work and they were trying to sabotage his car? Days later, his car ends up mysteriously flying into a wall at 100 miles per hour. They know we know. That's the point. The Tuskegee syphilis experiment came here to say exactly this. 600 black males were told they were receiving free health care. Instead, crossed out. They were deliberately exposed to syphilis so its natural progress could be studied. Some were selected because they already had it. None of them were informed they had it, and none were treated for it, so they went back out into their communities and very likely spread it, none the wiser. The study lasted for 40 years. So I actually took a class on this and wanted to chime in to refute some of this stuff, not because it's any less horrible, but because the reality is to me more horrible. The study involved 600 black men, about half of them with syphilis and half without. Over the course of the study, some became sick and moved from the healthy group to the ill group. None of the men were deliberately exposed to syphilis. This info has probably been mixed up with another study, the Guatemala syphilis study, which was architected by John Kotler, who also participated in the Tuskegee study, leading to the misconception. Also, the Guatemala syphilis study was a horrible, massively messed up study and a dark time in US research. If you want to get extremely angry, check it out, and then if you want to feel like breaking things, read about Madrigal v. Quilligan. Man, my blood is actively boiling. What actually happened in the Tuskegee study was that a number of men were selected in an area that was known for high rates of syphilis and were told by the US government that they would receive treatment for their bad blood, a euphemism for syphilis. They were coerced into the study through offerings of meager rewards for participation, including a burial paid for by the government and a few hot meals. They did actually receive what they thought was treatment. They went into the doctor, they had tests done as well as invasive spinal taps, they were given creams and ointments that had limited treatment helpfulness. However, as you can probably guess, none of these things were particularly effective and some did nothing at all. In actuality, they were being studied for the progression of the disease, as the prevailing theory was that it affected black and white people differently. Spoiler, it didn't. This charade went on for 40 years. Over that time, penicillin, an effective treatment for syphilis, became widespread, but the doctors kept them from the treatment deliberately, even going so far as to bar the men from participating in armed forces because the army would have given them access to penicillin and the better treatments of the day. In this time period, the study was not technically a secret. Multiple scientific journal articles commenting on various findings were published publicly. Clearly, the CDC didn't think they were doing anything wrong. Some doctors spoke out, but it wasn't until Peter Buxton, among others, although he was the most effective, a relatively new hire at the CDC, blew the whistle from the inside that the entire scene stopped. Even then, it took Buxton 4 years, from 1968 to 1972, to bring about the study's end, and he had to take the information to the press to actually halt it for real. The men themselves, for the most part, got very little by way of apology. They were given small amounts of money and a formal apology by President Clinton. The whole scene is pretty well buried now and is barely talked about in school and in history classes. I think it's important that the full scope of the tragedy that was this period of US history is talked about. I think it's important that the real, accurate facts are known. The event itself was so incredibly horrible. I think we owe it to those men to remember exactly what happened to them, exactly as it did. They were lied to and manipulated and used in the worst of ways. And they deserve their story to be told in full as loudly and as long as it can be. The CIA testing birth control on unsuspecting women in Puerto Rico, along with testing Agent Orange on the island. Along with, actually using it in Vietnam. Along with borrowing all the leftover Agent Orange on one of our army bases in Korea. Well, this probably isn't the worst thing America has done since it didn't happen, but Operation Northwoods. This was a proposed false flag attack on US soil that would justify going to war with Cuba. It was rejected by Kennedy, but approved by every man before him. It's stuff like this that makes the whole 9/11 inside job conspiracy sound a little less wacky, because this was essentially the same scene. Kennedy had a surprising number of those "what the fuck guys, no, we are not doing that" moments. Which is surprising since he didn't even serve a full term as president. Although that may be why he didn't serve a full term as president. I'm sure that for every fucked up scene we know about, there are even worse scenes that we don't. Roswell, 1947. Let's say that myth about aliens anally probing us is purely projection. The involvement in various Latin American countries during the Cold War was pretty fucked up. Chivington and Doe are still in business. What the fuck? The things they haven't been caught for. The MK Ultra stuff that leaked was the stuff that didn't work. Sandy Creek Massacre. 500 Colorado cavalry was sent to track down natives that were attacking settlers. For good reason, but that is a long story. They ended up coming to a Cheyenne village that was known to be peaceful. Its leader, Black Kettle, was a voice of peace for the natives and had even gone to Washington, D.C. to meet with President Lincoln and negotiate a lasting peace between Americans and Cheyenne. Lincoln gave him an American flag and told him that so long as it flew in their camp, no American would harm them. Anyways, this asshole Chivington was leading the cavalry and saw it as some kind of noble duty. After months of searching for aggressive natives and coming up empty-handed, the government ordered him to disband his force and go home. Chivington, now faced with the prospect of his crusade being an embarrassment, decided to attack Black Kettle's village, basically just to say he did something. The Colorado cavalry attacked in the middle of the night in mid-November while everyone was sleeping. Eyewitness accounts are terrifying, and basically women, children and men were run down as they tried desperately to flee across a frozen river. Black Kettle ran into the middle of the battle, waving the American flag and screaming that they were friends of America. But the Americans turned on him and he was forced to drop the flag and flee as well. The fact that Black Kettle survived is miraculous, but most of his clan did not, and the few that survived the battle mostly died of hypothermia and starvation from literally fleeing through a frozen river in the middle of the night. Cavalrymen raped live and dead women, including children, and cut off male and female genitals and strapped them to their horses as decorations. Black Kettle and what remained of his clan ended up getting sent to a reservation where they mostly starved to death, and Black Kettle gave up on peace as the younger generation flocked to warlords like Roman Nose and Crazy Horse. This ended up contributing to Red Cloud's war, as did most of the other atrocities in the West. Oh, also Chivington was known to have said "needs make lies," a statement that referred to his campaign of exterminating native children along with anyone else. Oh, and I'm pretty sure Colorado nearly elected him governor after all of this anyways. The full quote was, "Kill them all, big and small, needs make lies," in case anyone was a Chivington sympathizer and wanted to say his words were taken out of context. They weren't. The full quote is, "Don't any man who sympathizes with Indians. I have come to kill Indians and believe it is right and honorable to use any means under God's heaven to kill Indians. Kill and scalp all, big and little, needs make lies." The Trail of Tears is pretty up there for most fucked up thing. Edit. Yes, I know slavery happened. I'm not arguing that this was worse, I just named the first thing that popped into my head. Wounded Knee would be another watershed moment for awfulness. Back in the 50s and 60s, the US military tested several different biological weapons on and unbeknownst to the public. They specifically targeted low-income and poverty-stricken areas. They tested things from chemicals to viruses. It wasn't declassified till 10 years ago. Edit. Why would they declassify it? Freedom of Information Act required them to disclose this. For years, so many people were arrested, disappeared, and even dismissed as conspiracy theories through this. I can also say that chemtrails aren't a sin. I work aerospace, and the altitude that these planes are flying wouldn't do anything. Planes would be flying much lower like crop dusters in order to make any effect. It's literally vapor and exhaust coming from the planes, and some stay longer because of the different altitudes, temps, and RH that they are flying. They also spread carcinogens, nerve agents, and radioactive materials over US and Canadian cities. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate you sharing your valuable time with me today. I think all these stories are really awful, but the last nearly made me cry. I'm not an American, and I just wanted to mention that I understand it's not my business and I don't want to get in politics, but this video is just entertaining content, so I hope you liked it. You can subscribe to my channel, give me big thumbs up, and see you in the next video.